So welcome all to the fourth office hours, RoamStack office hours. So for those who are not familiar with RoamStack, by the way, I hear some typing, so can everyone please mute themselves? Um, so who's not familiar with RoamStack? My name is Ramses Out. I'm from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. So if you hear a funny accent, my partner in crime with RoamStack is Francis Miller, who is also in the call. And together we started RoamStack about 4 months ago to really help people become Roam power users. So we noticed that there's a lot of content out there, a lot of videos on YouTube, articles, lots of tweets, but there's not one central repository of Roam knowledge and Roam workflows. So that is what Francis and I are building. We are both very interested in educational design and knowledge design. And one of our areas of interest is can we transfer knowledge. So it's not just transferring facts, obviously, when learning Roam, it's also gaining an intuition of how to best use Roam. So that's something we try to instill in people and help people develop. And these office hours are a tool to get to know fellow RoamStack members. So in this case, it's a public office hours. So there are also many people in here who are probably not RoamStack members. But RoamStack, apart from the blog we also have a knowledge base, so member area, that's in the member area. And we have a community. And apart from that, we have a public bi-weekly newsletter. So that's what we create. And then normally the content that's only for members is the knowledge base, the community, and some of the office hours. But we want to really understand the needs of Roam users. So expressing your needs, please do that in this session, in the chat, speak up. If you are stuck with something, we would love to help you. And if you have a question, there's probably someone else who has that question as well. So we're trying to gather all these questions, all these points that people tend to get stuck, and help them get through. I still hear some people who are not muted. Francis, can you otherwise mute people, please? Thanks. And I see some people muting themselves. Great, thank you all. So feel free to ask questions. Do that in the chat. And I will have a quick look at the chat before we dive into queries, because that's the topic for today. Let's see. I don't see any questions. Oh, wait, I do see some comments. So Jacques says, he's using Roam as a personal knowledge management system. Yeah, okay, and he hopes to understand queries better. Let's see. Okay, so not specific questions. Great. Let's dive into queries then. Let's get to the meat of today's session. And then afterwards, we'll have time for questions. All right, so queries. Queries are something special. They look intimidating to most people, because if you look at a query, and we'll have a look in a bit, they look like programming. And if you're not a programmer, you're not waiting, or you just don't want to start programming in a note-taking system. That's not really nice experience. So most people want to point and click, but queries are extremely powerful. So they are one way, they're not the only way, but they're one way to search your Roam database. And the way it works is it takes in search terms. And the way queries work, or the search term for queries, are links. So what is a link in Roam? essentially everything. Um, every link acts the same. So a link can be just double brackets. It can be a hashtag. It can be an attribute. An attribute is also a link. What's more a link? For example, a block reference, which is also a type of link. Even a block embed are types of links. And then you have external links. But in this case, with Roam queries, we talk about like internal links, so attributes, tags, and the double brackets. And the way queries work is you give in search terms, and then the query will look for all mentions of those search terms. And you have some possibilities, and we'll dive into the logic behind queries in a bit. But it works on block level and it works on branch level. So if you're not familiar with the term branches, you are probably familiar with nested blocks or indentation. So if you look here, just this example, this block is nested underneath this block. And this block here, these two blocks here, are nested underneath this block. So together, as you can see here, they are forming a branch. So these blocks are associated. And if well, let's not go ahead too far. But those are the most important things to take into consideration. So you want to associate one or more links, and we'll dive into that in a bit. But that's basically how queries work. So you cannot say I want to find the pages, and I want to find all pages that have term A and term B. No, it really is on a branch and on a block level. So it really looks for links inside the same block and then within the same hierarchy of blocks. So the same collection or string of blocks branch. I hope I'm not confusing too many people right now. There are different types of queries. And these are these are like logic. So the query logic has a few inputs, and the easiest way to show this is with a visual. So if you see here, there are few options we have, and the simplest are or, and not. So those are the logical components of queries. Or means that if you insert, for example, three search terms, in this case, fruit, vegetables, cereals, and you use the or function, that means that you get any block which mentions one of these. So can be that one block mentions them all, or it can mean that a block only mentions one of these. Then the add argument takes all the search terms into consideration. So for example, if I put into a query dairy products, export, and Europe, only the blocks return that have all of these links. And then we have not. So if I say apples, not fruit, it will return only the blocks that only have the term apples in them. But if a block also has the term fruit in it, it will not return that block. So that is very simply query logic. But in Roam, we have a few. So we already had a look at and, or, and not. So those are the basic building blocks of Roam queries. And we'll see how to create them in a minute. And there's also one which is particularly to Roam, and that is best used on a daily notes page. And it only looks for blocks either on a daily notes page or tagged with a date, but that's the between argument. So the two search terms that you enter are two dates. And we'll see an example of that in a bit. Then it's also possible to create nested queries, and we'll also get to that in a bit. So why haven't I shown you the syntax yet? So the way how you actually create them. That's because it's very confusing. So I will show you a few ways, and then one of my favorite ways, which is completely visual. So we have to thank David Vargas for that. But before you begin, I really recommend, especially if you're a beginner, write out your query in natural language. So as an example, I could say, I want to find books by Sönke Arends, author of How to Take Smart Notes. That way, I have in front of me what I'm searching for. So that makes writing the query already a lot easier. If you're somewhat familiar with queries, that's not necessary anymore. Then there's the manual way. I will show you now how you manually create a query, and you'll probably understand why you don't want to do that. So you start with curly braces, then double brackets, query, colon. Let's say I want to see all, let's see, I want to see all notes of How to Take Smart Notes, the book. And yeah, and I want to see all my notes. Let's see if I have some. I have one. Great. So that's one way to write them. If you just, if what you just saw, if that flew over your head, don't worry. That's normal. Most people don't start out this way. Most people start out with the slash trigger. So if you write slash, you get the trigger menu. So you get all the standard options. So you can get to some short codes. One of the short codes is query. And as you can see, you can choose from and or not. The between is not in here, so that's a hidden feature. So you either have to do that manually or with a plugin I'm going to show you in a bit. But these are the basic options. So I could do the same thing I just did now. So I select the first one, and then I replace these with the page I want to search, and then note here, what I just did before. So that's how most people do it. And then there's the amazing David Vargas, who created the query builder, which works with the double curly braces QB shortcode. So I will demo that now. And you only need to click away from the block. Ta-da. So you get a visual query builder. I will link to this plugin in the chat. I will also share a, sorry, I just need to stop sharing for a bit. So that's the query builder. And then I also need to share the page with all the resources. Sorry, had to do that. Actually had to do that before. Hopefully I can still share. Oh, Francis, can you give me the rights to share my screen?
There we are.
Thanks. All right, so back to the query. So this is an amazing plugin. It makes writing queries so easy, and I will demonstrate it right now. But what it basically does is I created this button just by using the QB shortcode, and now I can click this button. Once I save it with my inputs, then it turns into a query. So I can do the same. So I first select the type of query. So I'm looking for an AND query. So I can say add child. And I can say how to take smart notes. So that's one input. That's one search term. And then what I just did before, I will look for the notes. As you can see now, we'll zoom out a little bit. You don't see the note here. So that is a bug in the plugin. So what I do is just hit the tab key, and then it will jump like this button. But at least I have note selected. I will click save, and then as you can see here, the query is created. I can click away. So let's go back to the query builder. Something really cool is, and I skipped the nested nested queries for now, but let's jump into them for now. So let's say I want to find an article. Let's say all right. So I want the article, the mental models FAQ, just like before. I want all notes. So I type note, hit tab. But now I want to include all queries that also search for the same thing. So how would I do that? And I'm going to return to this later. So if it's confusing now, I will return to it in a bit. I can add another child, but instead of selecting a tag, I can select another argument. So I can say, I want to see all, I want to see the articles. Sorry, I want to see all notes from this article, but I don't want to see, I don't want to see query. And query is also a tag. So I save this, I get, and then the query is written for me. And now you can see the nested query. So you first have the two search terms. I look for a specific article and I want to see all notes on that page, but I don't want to see the queries. And why don't I want to see that? Because I know I already have a query on that page. So if I wouldn't do it, the query itself would also show, and I will show in a bit what it looks like. But now I can retrieve all my notes, and it's not it's not polluted by other things. For example, here I can now say, all right, I want to see all notes, but I have tagged this node. I've tagged systems thinking in it. And let's say I don't want to see anything that has to do with systems thinking. I can add the search term to not systems thinking. I click away. Oh, let's see, something is going on. Well, now it's not showing anything. I don't know why this is happening. It should just leave out that one node, but I don't know what is happening here. Maybe someone who knows something about queries can jump in. Otherwise, we'll get to. That's strange. It should filter it out. Anyway, so far there are questions. Let's see in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to continue. Ben says, that's a good comment. If you're brand new to queries, you might wonder how to search for a single tag instead of multiple because it only offers and, but you can still feel that single tag. Oh, you can still enter a single tag and it still works. Yeah, queries work with single tags as well. So you can make them progressively more complex. All right. So queries in action. I am going to remove this not argument, and you will see that this query is now coming back. Another query is coming back. And why is that? Because in this query, I'm searching for links. But if I create a query, I create a link as well. So if you don't explicitly filter out queries, they will show up in other queries. So that's why we use this not argument. So you only see the results that don't contain query. So that's why you should add the not. I've already shown how. Oh, this is the example. If you don't filter them out, so this example is, for me, that's one of my main workflows I use queries for. So I always have a section on a page when I've read a book and taken notes or taken highlights. I always make sure to tag my notes with the notes attribute so I can easily find them using a query. And I always show them on the same page, as you can see here. So that's how I mostly use queries. But again, you can also use them just to search. Let's see. Then, for example, another example is if you use tags and you use metadata, you can input a author and you can see all the books that the author created. So in this case, I look for books and Stoicism, a topic I'm interested in, and it retrieves all the blocks where it mentions both books and Stoicism, and then it shows the page where it's mentioned. Obviously, this is very low resolution because it only shows the tags block, but that's precisely how queries work. They do not look at other blocks at the same level. They only look, so queries only look within a block and then a string of blocks. But if blocks are on the same level, it cannot find anything outside of that. So an example of that, to make it less confusing, hopefully, if you have this query, this is currently empty. So what I'm looking for is today, and today is a tag you can use, and today is today. You can use today in the between tag, for example. And I want to find all to-dos, but I currently don't have to-dos on my daily notes page. I have some data here, and as you can see here, I've here explicitly tagged it with today. But as you can see here, these blocks are siblings, so they are on the same level. So there's no way for Roam to associate these. So it's currently looking for all blocks that and contain today and contain to do. So as you can see here, this is a to do in Roam is linked. It's a link. So I can search for to-dos, but these two are not associated. I can associate them in two ways. I could say, I'm going to tag this with today, and it will show up. That's very easy because now today, to-do and today are in the same block. But I can do it another way. I can also nest this block underneath, and you'll see the same will happen. So why is that the case? It's because it doesn't only look in the same block. A query also looks for all the blocks that come before. So it looks for the parent blocks. And lo and behold, here I've written today. In theory, it should be possible to move this up and say today is not written here, but it's written here. And you see it also appears. And why is that? Because it's still in the same branch. It's higher up. It's not directly above the to-do, but it's still in the same branch. And if I click here in the query, I can see the complete branch. So I can even click up in a query. So I can see the complete hierarchy. And the cool thing is, you see this today and query are in the same level. But once I clicked into the query and I expanded the view, I could finally also see the sibling blocks. So it really gives you a really rich context, but only if you want. So to go back to this example and why I use queries for my highlights is, okay, I've written a note, but I can click here and I can also see the highlight. And if I click up, I can see, oh, they are nested underneath a heading. And wow, I can see the whole context. But here, the note that was retrieved using the query, that one is still highlighted. But I can see the entire context in which it's placed. The only thing that query doesn't do is search in those other blocks. But if I indent the blocks correctly, I will be able to really find blocks very quickly and still have the context ready. So that was me 20 minutes jabbering about queries. And this is the first time I'm talking about queries in public. So sorry if it was a little bit confusing at some points. Hopefully the logic is it lands. It's just the few arguments you have to figure out and what it does. I have a bunch of resources and they are in the database I linked to earlier in the chat. So I would start out, especially if you're a beginner, install David Vargas Query Builder plugin, and I will show you how I did that. Let's go to my plugins page. And let's see. So this is the query builder. If you want to install a plugin, you need 2 blocks. So you need to have a code block and you need to have this Roam/JS block. And again, it's wedged in between curly braces, then this link between double brackets, Roam/JS, and then a code block. On our blog on RoamStack, there's also an article about how to install a plugin. So please have a look at that as well. Then the image I just showed earlier, that is from this article, searching Roam with queries, a primer. Then Andy Hansen, he's also in the call. He wrote an article about queries. I recommend you check that out. Roam Hacks also has a quite nice article about queries. And then we have some great videos. I would start with RJ Nestor's video. He also has a great video on indentation. So if it doesn't really click how the branching works, how the association between different blocks works, I really recommend that you check out his YouTube channel. Robert Hazefield, he is really good at creating, but also explaining queries. So he gave a workshop recently, and this is a video found today by chance by a channel, The Upgraded Brain, and it is a task management system using queries. So the cool thing is you can nest tasks underneath, for example, a status, or you can tag a to-do with a particular status and then use them for queries. So you can say, I want to find all queries for today, which I did here, but I can, it doesn't matter where the to-dos are written, what page, queries will look everywhere. So as long as a block is tagged with today and to-do, you can pull them from everywhere. So lots of talking from my side. I'm going to check the chat, and if you have a question, please feel free to speak up. And I'm going to take a sip of water and check the chat. Heather asks, how can you search for 2 or more specific words in your database? I don't know what you mean with specific words, but a query really only looks for links. So tags, links created with double brackets, and attributes. And Andy says then as an answer, well, you can use normal search bar. Yeah, so normal search bar has full text search. Queries, again, only work with links. They don't do full text search. Yeah, what is the best way to search the entirety of a page, including its title? So the way I retrieve my notes from a page is this way. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing. So again, it's just the way I searched earlier. So what you see here, this link, article/the mental model FAQ, that's a page name. And the way it works in Roam is you should see a page title as a parent block, so, or a parent link. So the title of the page is like the topmost block in a hierarchy, and then all the blocks that you place on that page are essentially child blocks of that page. So that's why I can input an article name, because that is a top block, and an article or a page in itself is a link. So I can input a page name and then look for any other mention or any other link on the page. So I can say, instead of note, let's see, I also have question. I also have like a question tag. So let's see, I can say, for example, I want to see all highlights and all questions, for example. And for now, let's assume highlights is a separate page. It works the same way. And I can retrieve all this. Oh, wait, let's do it another way. Let's use actual. Yeah, so this is the page name, and then I can look for questions, but I can also look for highlights. And now I'm looking for all the questions based on highlights, but for a very specific page. If I remove this specific page, I get all the blocks regardless of the page of highlights where I have a question. So that's how you can use page names. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but I really want to drill at home that you use page names. People often forget it, but you can search on a page and automate like the collection of blocks. That's what I like to do. Let's see, and can you search on a page? Andy says you can use Command or Control F. Yeah, just to search on a page itself. But that's just a browser-based search. Oh, really good question from Jacques. Is there a way to have the results of a query appear in a Kanban board? Yeah, you can. So you can create a Kanban board, and then instead of fields that instead of just text that you put in, you can use blocks with queries. So you can essentially drag a query from one part of the Kanban board to another, if that answers your question. I see a question from Stephanie. Do you run stuff in Roam/JS and Roam/JS at the same time, or is it one or the other? In the case of Roam.js, I can have more than one block active, so more than one plugin active at a time. Roam CSS, so that's the themes, that's the markup. It only works with one block active at the time. So that's a really good question. I will share my screen again. So as you can see here, I have several plugins active. This is Roam/JS. Oh, but if we go to /CSS, I have this theme active currently, as you can see here, because I have it as CSS. If I change it to JavaScript, you would see, okay, the whole theme changes. If I now enable this one, it will change. And why is that? Because this block is on top of this one. So it's still CSS, but you can see you cannot mix and match themes. You can only have one active. It will be one or the other. I can now select another theme, and it doesn't do anything except for just a few minor things that are not taken care of by the top theme. But it will always apply the topmost block in CSS, but that's only for CSS. Let's switch back to this theme. All right, so that's a really good question. Let's see, more questions. So, oh, and well, Andy, you are so great in the chat. Thank you. So to get back to the question of Jacques, if you can use queries in a Kanban board, you can use queries as blocks in a Kanban board, but you cannot use the results of a query in a Kanban board. That is correct, Andy. And Andy pointed that out. What else? Ooh, Eric, you're putting me on the spot. Is Eric still here? Yeah, Eric, you're putting me on the spot. What's your template workflow for metadata within pages specifically? I know you mentioned not nesting when possible. I said not nesting when possible. I would say nest when possible in Roam. Roam really works best if you indent blocks, because as we've seen before, all the links apply to the whole branch. So you really would want to use indentation. The way I have currently set up my metadata, and I'm still sharing, I see. So let's go to this article, for example. You can see the metadata here. So for queries, my metadata sucks because it doesn't work. I cannot search for Cedric Chin and mental models, because if I do, and I can do that here. So let's see. I'm going to, Cedric. I'm going to look for Cedric, and I'm going to look for mental models. Yeah. And I save it. Nothing happens. Why is that? Because it's on the same level. A solution would be, but then you cannot use attributes. And I'm still searching. So anyone who has suggestions, please put it in the chat. But an alternative would be to do something like this: author, then Cedric Chin. I do shift return, shift enter to create not a new bullet, but a new line. And then I would do something like tags, and I would write mental models. And now you can see it appears, but that's only because it's in the same block. Alternatively, And I don't know if this is going to work. So I'm going to experiment. I could, yeah, as you can see, this also works. Although it doesn't really look nice, but you could nest them all. So what I did here is I'm still using attributes, but it now can see, now I've associated the blocks by indenting them. So as you can see now, I can search for Cedric Chin, which is in the first block, and for mental models, which is in the last block. Why? Because it's associated. As soon as I move this here, the query doesn't work anymore. Even one indentation is enough, but as you can see, and the funny thing is, you can also see this change, the query change. Why is that? So depending on the indentation, because the query shows the whole branch. As I've shown before, I can click and it will show the whole context. So I'm still experimenting with this. I'm a little bit leaning toward this model because then I can still use attributes, although I suspect it will not work with attribute tables anymore, because so far as I know, attribute tables, for those who are familiar with it, only looks for attributes on the same level. I'm not going to try that out. I have too many pages. I've already let my database crash in the past in a live call. So yeah, that is a possibility. Eric, that's such a great question. I have not a clear answer. This is one possibility. So I've shown you two. Have like new lines within a block or nest them. Then Ben, question. There are quite some questions. Okay, I'm going to read your question out loud, Ben. I don't know if I have an answer. I don't know Photoshop that well. I'm looking for so Ben is asking, I'm looking for a method of searching for something like Photoshop adjustments, and I want it to show me any and all pages that contain those words. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, those words, even if it's in the page name. Normal search bar does not search widely. A page called Photoshop tips that contains blocks of filters, adjustments, layers. If I search for Photoshop adjustment layers, there are no results. Okay, so in your case, Ben, if you, so let's say, let's first create a pseudo one. So you have a page called Photoshop tips, and you want,
just interrupt.
yeah,
if you were to try to search when you were not viewing the page you were currently looking at,
yeah,
if you were to search for the terms of December welcome in tips, that page wouldn't show up.
You said December?
That's in the title of the page or the name of the page. And then welcome is the first block and tips is where you just typed. I'm looking for a search method where I can find every single page in my Roam graph that contains the whatever search I'm typing in, the combination of words. If it's contained anywhere, regardless of how nested into various blocks it is, that I can locate that page.
Yeah. You would need Roam Portal, I think.
Which is a Chrome extension?
Yeah, so it's...
I'm on Safari.
Yeah, so I can search for terms. So that would be, for example, tips. Let's see. I'm not that proficient with, yeah. So, let's see. I've just written Photoshop tips. So what Roam Portal does, and it is a extension, Chrome extension, but it also works in Vivaldi and Brave. It's a full text search. So you can essentially, you can search for anything. So queries is very specifically, you search for links, so you can really plan things and you can really structure everything, and you can save your searches essentially. With Roam Portal, you put in it's more fuzzy search, so you will get more irrelevant results back, but it searches everywhere. It searches everywhere on the page. So I think that is probably
okay.
the
I'll
best.
look into that.
Yeah, and then you can also search within a specific page. As you can see here, only search inside the page. So play around with Roam Portal. It also has really good visualization, so you can visualize your graph, which is crazy. So yeah, that's my recommendation for that. Let's see. Thank you for asking, Ben. That's a good question. Bob, can you use queries to list only the to-dos, no dates, or other text? Yes, you can. You can just use one argument. You can also just go to the page to do, and you can go to all your linked references, and you get to see all your to-dos. You can also just go to the to-do page and use filters. So you can, and again, it works the same way. So anything that's associated either in the same page or branch. Let's see. Yeah. So it just grabs all to-dos from, again, the same branch. It works the same way as oh, I see. I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. So I was showing the to-do page, and you can go to linked references, and you can use filters, and it's essentially the same thing as queries. So you can go to the page and then use filters to drill down. But obviously, it doesn't have the nested features of queries.
So Ramses, that's fine, yeah. Except you have to exclude every date that you don't want to show on that list. I'm looking for a little bit more elegant solution.
Yeah, good question. So then you would need to use the between. So let's see. I can say, let's use the query builder. So I can say I want to find every, so you want to find every to-do between two dates, right? For example.
Yep.
Okay.
That should work.
Yeah. So you need to use the between tag. Sorry, I need to go to my daily pages, because then I can use the today tag. So I'm going to look for all to-dos, and I'm going to look for everything between, I don't know, December. Let's go for November 4th, and today. All right. So before I say this, there's a very important comment to make. Obviously, now it's searching for dates, but it's not searching for dates that to-do was created. It's a query, so it has to be associated. So how is a date associated with a block? That's either through daily pages, daily notes. Remember, a page name is like the top parent block. So you can search on dates, and then all the tasks that are on your daily notes will be retrieved. If you create tasks on other pages, so outside of your daily notes, and you want to associate them with a date, you have to first tag the to-do with the date. So either as a parent block or within the block itself. So that is a caveat. So let's now save this. So I'm searching for all to-dos that were created, well, not created, sorry, that are associated with the dates between November 4th and today. I'm going to save it. It's going to think, and now it found 65 to-dos. As you can see here, it shows all my daily checklists. So I don't do my evening pages every day. I don't do my morning pages every day. Busted. So, but that's how it works. And what it shows is it's everything from my daily pages. But let's say I want to create a to-do somewhere else that's associated with a day. So let's go back. Let's create a to-do. So Command Enter, to-do, and I tag today, and I say test. If I now return to my daily note where that query is, it should show up because it's looking for all to-dos out of my entire graph tagged with to-do and today's date. So I am going back and I see 66 results, and I'm going to sort by created date. Again, this is David Vargas plugin. This one, normally you cannot sort query results. So let's see. It's not, oh yeah, here it's showing up. So I created this today. Test. Here you can see it, test. So that's how dates work. So if you want to use dates, if you want to use the between argument, this is called an argument, where you put in the search terms. You use your daily notes. That's the best recommendation I can give. Stephanie, oh my goodness, I feel like I need to speed up because we only have a few minutes left, but I will stick here until all the questions are covered. So Stephanie, Francis, how do you use queries in your day-to-day workflow? I mean, when do you know query would find the information you're looking for? Yeah, that's a really good question. So by the words of Robert Hasefield, who I think is the Roam query guru, look at his videos, really good. He says, write your notes with queries in mind. So think of links, link freely, and use indentation also freely. So don't have large blocks like all in the same level. Use indentation, associate blocks. How I use these and how I use links, for example, is also I like to use indentation to not have to tag a block again. So I can tag, for example, an author, tag their name, a quote, and then have my own thoughts underneath. And even if I name the author again in subsequent blocks, I don't need to link it again because all the blocks are already associated with that author. I am thinking of, so I have my daily template that I just use an text expander snippet for. I'm thinking of incorporating some queries in there, maybe with inspirational quotes. I don't do task management in Roam, but otherwise I would have a query with all to-dos tagged maybe within a specific date range or with specific status. So I've also linked to a video in the resources where with an example of how to do how to build a to-do system with queries. So that is something I would say day to day, and from there just take it from there. So over time you will get used to indenting stuff, tagging stuff. So I tag really freely. I try to tag every block at least with one link. So there's always at least one entry point. Or if I don't tag a block, I want at least that one of the other blocks in the branch is tagged. So I at least have an entry point. There's always an entry point to a block, either through the daily notes, so then the date is associated, or on a page, then the page is associated. So there's always an entry point for a block, but I like to increase the chances of me re-encountering that block. Ooh, Andy mentioning the Roam 42 smart blocks feature to do some more advanced stuff with your to-dos. I must say I haven't looked too much at the smart blocks yet, so that is something on my to-do list, because I have to publish an article about it next week, according to our roadmap. So that's on the roadmap. More questions. Let's see. Raw query for anyone not using the Roam JS extension. Oh yeah. Yeah, if you don't use the David Vargas plugin, which I recommend to do, use the slash trigger for queries. But then again, you only have 4 options, so you cannot really make them too complex, or you have to write them by hand. And if you're a beginner, I don't recommend writing them by hand, because just keeping track of the curly braces is insane. Sometimes, so I've had queries with 10 curly braces at the end, and one was missing and the whole query didn't work. So I was like, shit, okay. So use David Vargas query builder. It does expand to a query. So I would say if you want to remember how you did it, take a screenshot. That's my best advice. And then Carol, could you explain how you use David's page synonym JS? I don't use it. I didn't even know there was one. So it's something I have to look into. And we're at the end of the questions. Wow. I've been talking nonstop. Are there still questions? You can put them in the chat or speak up. Feel free. Comments. Also comments if you think I would explain this differently, or this confused me. Please let me know. I welcome all feedback. Also, if it's confusing, especially if it's confusing, I want to know. All right. That is the office hours then. So no time for other topics. But luckily, most of the questions were about queries. So in 2 weeks, we'll have another office hours. And the topic for discussion is still open. So before we used to do office hours, and it was maybe short demo from my side, and then a group discussion and open questions. So most of it was Q&A. I want to shift it now more toward explaining a topic and then have room for Q&A, but then mostly Q&A about the topic that was just discussed. So like today. But yeah, that like an abstract topic, in my opinion, queries are a little bit of an abstract topic. I'm still struggling a little bit, so thank you for bearing with me. If you have any thoughts or follow-up questions, you can send an email to RoamStack@gmail.com, and I will put the email address in the chat. You can also tweet us, and my DMs are also open. So on Twitter, my handle is rrout. And yeah, we are going to continue with these office hours. So every 2 weeks, around this time, maybe half an hour earlier or later, but around this time slot, we're going to do bi-weekly office hours. And for everyone who attended, you will get the recording usually takes after the weekend. I take as much downtime as possible in the weekend. And if you are a member, you can also go back to previous office hours. And we're also taking, at least I'm progressively taking notes of the office hours. So you can find all the topics that we discussed for each office hours if you're a RoamStack member, also in the RoamStack community. We are working on a overview page where you can find all office hours with all notes, but that's still in the works. And what else? I think that's it. Yeah. Again, if you have suggestions, please let us know.